It's a new year, and that means only one thing. That's right, it's time to go over financial earnings from the previous 4 quarters. So leave a like for fiscal years. Let me get some plugs in before I get started. I have a 40-page comic anthology made up of 3 short stories coming out sometime soon. It's called DESTRUCTO Boy and Other Exciting Tales. Here's a little look-see at what's going on, and hopefully by the time this video comes out, I will have made a video specifically about that comic. And we'll also have links available for you to go and purchase it if you're interested. As you can see, it's slightly larger than a normal comic book. I also have a TeePublic Store where I sell shirts and now some face masks, themed after Jack Kirby. So apparently, this was a thing that Marvel did during the early 90s, and seemingly the early 2000s, at least once in 2004. What this is just one of the weirdest ideas I've ever really seen from the mainstream comics. It's financial reports and a recap of Marvel's business year from the past year of 1993. But, like, they turned it into a comic book. I was gonna get a couple of the other years to just sort of, like, reference and see what the differences were. Maybe, like, see what the difference was prior to Image being founded and after Image being founded. But for some reason, 1993 was the cheapest issue I could find. Released in 1993, I would assume. Written by Gary Fishman, whom I'm not even sure was a real person because all the credits this guy has are for Marvel annual reports, and I could not find a whole lot about him. With art by Art Nichols, Rodney Ramos, lettering by Ken Lopez, and color by Jim Houston. This is the Marvel 1993 Annual Report. First of all, let's just take a look at this cover. Hold on, it continues to the back. There we go. Let's see, there's like a background absolutely littered with Marvel Comics merchandise, and on the front cover is Iron Man, Wolverine, and Human Torch? Then on the back is, a redesign for the Thing and Invisible Woman. At least she doesn't have the boob window, but come on, these are terrible costumes. Also, Spider-Man's there, and Ant-Man? Was this because Ant-Man was like in the Fantastic Four, I think? I don't know. Is that a thing that happened, or am I going crazy? Looking at this list I found of the top 50 Marvel comics of 1993, I don't see a single Iron Man or Fantastic Four anywhere. And why is Spider-Man, of all characters, on the back? The book begins with a letter from Bill Bevins and Terry Stewart addressing the shareholders of the company. Dear fellow shareholders, the company continued its progress in 1993 towards its vision of a diversified youth entertainment company through the expansion of its portfolio of products. They talk briefly about Toy Biz and Fleer, blah blah blah. 37% of their revenue growth in 1993 actually came from publishing their funny books. Blah blah blah. Marvel is going to start selling more t-shirts and apparel along with translated reprints in Italy and Germany in 1994. Let's see, they're discussing the success of the XMen television show and announced that by the end of 1994, 3 all-new half-hour animations of Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, and Iron Man will premiere. The Iron Man cartoon and the Fantastic Four cartoon both had only 2 seasons, and they both ended on the same day, February 24th, 1996. The Spider-Man show, however, continued until 1998, a show which I believe is vastly overrated. Fight me. Let's see, their long-term plans. Oh, let's see here, this should be good. Marvel will establish a presence in both retail stores and restaurants, and they are confident that they will successfully launch a rollout of these businesses in 1995 and beyond. The quote-unquote story, if you can even call it that, begins in a flash of brilliance, and 3 of the most popular heroes in the Marvel Universe emerge in whereabouts unknown. Spider-Man, Wolverine, and Iron Man all appear in the middle of space or something, or some sort of like pocket dimension or virtual reality. Who cares? They're confused and worried about where they are. Apparently this has happened to Wolverine before, so he seems to be the constant factor between all of these Marvel annual reports. Every year, I guess, Wolverine just has to go through and learn about what Marvel has done business-wise. The heroes float past giant bar and pie charts in space, and as Spidey passes the net revenues and 1993 revenue mix, 48.2% of which came from sports cards, he asks Iron Man what the hell is happening. Iron Man takes a glance over at Marvel's gross profits and explains that they're in a virtual reality rendition of the Marvel Entertainment Group. Then he is like, wow, Marvel is creating a portfolio of revenue centers based on Marvel products and sports licenses. Meanwhile, Wolverine, the only person who seemingly hasn't been brainwashed by this weird living business that is the Marvel Entertainment Group, maybe it's because of his healing factor that the brainworm can't get in. He's trying to figure out why they're there, and then he sees the culprit behind their abduction. It's none other than Multiple Man. Multiple Man tells them that the Marvel stock split 2-for-1, which now means that if you owed 1 share in 1991, you now own 8 shares. Then Wolverine tells them to shut up and asks what's really going on here. Then, one of the most popular X-Men villains appear. Is it A, Shadow King, B, Mr. Sinister, C, Arcade, or D, Obnoxio the Clown? If you said Arcade, you are wrong, because he was never popular. Arcade announces that he's after Marvel itself, and that he plans to learn the secrets of how it was so incredibly successful in 1993 so he can duplicate it for himself! Then he somehow splits himself into 3, and they each disappear into different wormholes. Our heroic trio then split up and give chase, and aww, look how cute, they're finishing each other's sentences. Spider-Man comes out of a wormhole and appears in a decimated New York City. Ironically enough, Marvel Comics is situated perfectly above the burning wreckage. He comes across the X-Men villain called Exodus, who is holding a baby in his hand while Cyclops, Black Knight, Crystal from the Inhumans, and Professor X all lie on the ground. This is actually the climax, I guess, of a 1993 Avengers X-Men crossover called Blood Ties. Cyclops gives Spider-Man the rundown so he doesn't have to read a terrible Scott Jopdale written crossover, and I love this panel. I don't know what it is about it, but I really dig this, like, the weird shadow effect that they put on Spider-Man. Also, the placement of his eye is just, it's off-putting and different. Like, it makes no sense anatomically, but I just love it. It just looks so weird. It kind of looks like when Mobius drew Spider-Man that one time. And apparently Spider-Man got crushed by rubble. So Black Knight helps him up as he explains that Marvel is the largest publisher in North America with over 100 titles a month. Compare that to the 36 titles a month that Marvel published in 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last era of the comic book speculation bubble right before it bursts, and the comic world nearly dies out.
Well, there's trouble in comic book world. Marvel Comics might not soon be there. The company is filing Chapter 13, and that's not good for fans. Narissa Witherspoon picks up the story.
Do you, as a consumer, worry?
Yeah, a little bit. I hope they don't cancel anything, but that's some pretty serious stuff.
Retailers like Tyranny say distribution problems and poor storylines have led to the Marvel decline.
3, Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man.
This is the hectic world of comic book trading.
Retailers like Tyranny say distribution problems and poor storylines have led to the Marvel decline.
So some young collectors have acquired the street smarts of penny stock traders.
You got to pretty well guess which comics are going to go up because you don't really know until they're a few months old, and by that time they're already around $10. So a lot of speculation in it.
And then when you get Todd McFarlane to sign one of the comics, then it doubles in value usually.
I cannot imagine what the Marvel annual reports for 1994 or 1995 were like. It must have been just pouring water out of a sinking ship with a teaspoon. Black Knight leads the charge against whatever the villain's name was. Who cares? and talks about how great Marvel characters are. Professor X says that events in comics were important in attracting readers. Events such as Maximum Carnage, and the revamp of Iron Man, Fantastic Four, and Daredevil. Then Crystal looks right at the reader and explains that marketing events are also significant, such as the enhanced hologram covers. The gang runs up to a brick wall with a door labeled 1994 on it, and Black Knight brandishes his laser sword and warns them that inside they will see how Marvel will continue to rework their titles to emphasize editorial entertainment, which really sounds like it never ends. Just look at how many events are from the last 10 years of Marvel Comics. Inside this weird building, Cyclops and Spidey find framed portraits of the covers of X-Men, Force Works, and Iron Man. Meanwhile, Black Knight distracts Exodus with the fact that Marvel is developing new programs to help comic book stores become stronger retailers, something that never held out. Then Professor X uses a psionic attack against Exodus. Exodus tries to play it off like he's a badass, and then Black Knight stabs him. Then Crystal's baby falls, but Spidey catches her just in time. Gee, guess he learned his lesson from Gwen. Fool me once, am I right, Spider-Man? Then I guess Cyclops just started going through Exodus's pockets because he finds copies of X-Men comics in the guy's cloak. But then Arcade appears and snatches them up and Spidey gives chase. Meanwhile, in the land of licensing and advertising, Wolverine fights Sabretooth until Gambit shows up. And you know what this means. I get to do my Gambit voice. Quickly, mon ami, before Sabretooth climbs back up. Wolverine asks where they are, and Gambit tells him that they are in the Sega Genesis X-Men video game, one of the best-selling Marvel licensed products in 1993. They climb up to the Excalibur Lighthouse as Gambit jabs on about the licensing benefits of trading cards, toys, clothing, betting, film, TV, and other various media. Then Juggernaut appears out of nowhere and shouts about the revenue growth and increased royalty rates and marketing for Marvel Comics characters worldwide. He also tells them about the 75 countries and 22 languages Marvel Comics have been reprinted in. Oh, what a vile creature he is indeed. Then he punches a wall and gets his hand stuck, and Wolverine and Gambit go into a door marked 1994. I don't know what the fuck is going on here. For some reason there's a brick wall inside this black abyss, and it has like X-Men posters thumbtacked to it. So maybe this is just like a wallpaper that looks like bricks. Wolverine watches television screens that discuss the Marvel cartoon shows that are coming out in 1994, giving Marvel a whole 2 hours of high-quality TV entertainment a week. And there's a Spider-Man live-action film deal in the works. I heard it'll be directed by James Cameron. Then Apocalypse shows up and warns the characters that they must not forget Marvel's advertising promotion revenues. Then he hands them a Pizza Hut box and talks about the Pizza Hut exclusive X-Men comics.
Strange and powerful forces are attracting people to Pizza Hut. It's the Marvel Comics X-Men video with a mini comic book, pull-out poster, and trading card, all for only $4.99 with any pizza purchase. There are 2 video packs to collect, so hurry and get your claws on them.
Oh, I'll wrap that up.
Exclusively at Pizza Hut.
But then a tiny little arcade leaps out of the pizza box like a tiny little leprechaun and runs off with the X-Men Pizza Hut VHS tape. Meanwhile, Iron Man joins the Fantastic Four. Iron Man joins the Fantastic Four in the Fleer dimension. Sue tells him that the Skrulls have sent a legion of warbots to take over the Fleer computer-animated card factory, whatever the fuck that means. And then she tells him what Fleer is and why Marvel bought it. Have you noticed, by the way, that trading cards are like making a comeback? I feel like I've started seeing a whole lot more trading cards when I go into the toy section of stores recently. And I don't like it. Then the Thing busts down the door into the Fleer factory. Inside they find this conveyor belt of giant sports trading cards and 6 major brands that Fleer offers. But then the warbots attack, and Iron Man starts hacking into a computer for something. Does this really matter? Who cares? He gets a complete file history of Fleer's revenues downloaded directly into his brain, And also, apparently, he discovers where the warbots are for some reason. The Thing busts down yet another door, and the gang finds magical items coming in 1994, such as upgraded and enhanced trading cards, and special Marvel cards from Fleer Ultra. Then the warbots surround them, but luckily Spider-Man and Wolverine are here now, so everyone starts fighting the robots. Isn't this cool? Iron Man spots Arcade stealing X-Men and Spider-Man trading cards, so they abandon the FF and give chase. They somehow end up in another warehouse. This time it's full of Toy Biz merch. But then a Sentinel attacks them, and absolutely nothing comes of it because it immediately disappears, and Spider-Man and Iron Man play with some toys. But then Hobgoblin attacks, so Wolverine hops inside the X-Men Danger Room pocket comic playset and shoots him down. Then the lights go out. And this is probably the weirdest part of this comic, because luckily for them, a angelic, luminous light begins shining over them, coming from the Gerber Baby, one of the many licenses that Toy Biz has. And Wolverine says,
Toy Biz's 1994 infant and preschool line is based on its Gerber license, bub. There'll be Gerber growing toys, Gerber nursery dolls, and Gerber electronics, featuring wireless video camera monitors to hear and watch your baby in the light or darkness.
I guess the brainworm finally got to him. Then the lights turn back on, and Arcade runs past them with a bunch of toys in his hand. Spidey and Wolverine try to chase him down, but Iron Man stops them, causing the virtual reality to cease. Arcade says that he brought the heroes there to help him understand Marvel's rapid success, but there's just too much going on. Marvel has too many comic books, consumer products, media licensing, advertising promotions, and trading cards, action figures, toys, video games, candy. It's just too much. It's virtually impossible to compete with Marvel. So Arcade smashes the database for all of Marvel's 1994 plans, and this is, without a doubt, the best panel of this entire story. The three then appear outside of the Marvel Entertainment Group headquarters in New York, and Spider-Man speaks for all of us. But Iron Man says that it wasn't a waste of time at all, because he sorta pirated everything that Marvel is going to do in 1994, and everything they experienced, and he's gonna turn it into a comic book and an annual report. So all of a sudden this book just gets incredibly meta. The end. Yeah, but that's where the comic portion of this book ends, not where the actual annual report ends. The following pages are, pretty boring, basic stuff, just financial data with god-awful, terrible, horrible, ugly, early 90s graphic design. But then, there are these pages. Look at this! It's a bar graph with Ant-Man. How weird is this? And why is the chart, blue and orange? Why is it angled askew like this? Isn't the point of a bar graph to, be straight on and parallel to the viewer in order to understand the growth or decline? Look at how confusing this is to try and, line everything up. Were the people who made this serious? Did they really think this was a good idea? And look at this one. At least it's easier to read, but it's a chart of stock price with Storm's Lightning as the chart line. And don't forget about the Jubilee chart on favorable demographic outlooks, ages 6 to 17. There's a bunch of other pages on finances and whatnot, but my favorite is this ominous bullet point in the Notes to Consolidated Financial Statements next to Captain America's foot, titled Long-Term Debt. And then, at the end of the book, you get some trading cards. Why wouldn't you? The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode of What Is. Please let me know what you thought of this weird, odd piece of history that Marvel made. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to subscribe for more content just like this. Make sure you check out Destructo Boy and other exciting tales, hopefully on sale now. I also have a Patreon that I will hopefully find the time to revamp soon, and check out my TeePublic page if you're at all interested in those nerdy designs. I'll see you next time. Bye.